Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on the weekend of October the 14th and 15th, 2023. There's something a bit scary about Virgo leaders, particularly, Virgo emperors, kings, that kind of thing. Virgos like things to be absolutely right. And when they're not absolutely right, they can get upset. There's a story about Ivan the Terrible, who was Tsar of Russia, which is not true, by the way, but it just, even though it's not true, it kind of sort of illustrates Virgo extremity. So Ivan the Terrible, I think he built St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. And and according to the story, he asked the architect whether he could build another one just like it. And the architect said, yeah, maybe he could. And so Ivan the Terrible had him blinded because, Ivan the Terrible wanted perfection, and he didn't like he wanted his Basil's cathedral to be, the one and only, and if this architect could build another one, well, rip his eyes out or whatever. The story is not true, but it is perhaps just illustrates sort of Virgo extremity. Another infamous Virgo emperor was Caligula. Caligula, he came to power in his 20s. First 6 months went fine, but then he got sick, and when he recovered, all hell broke loose. So if you go see the film, of course the film is an exaggeration, but Caligula's reign is notorious. It's short reign. I think he was. I don't think he didn't make his 30th birthday. I think the Praetorian Guard killed him. Caligula was born on the 31st of August, AD 12. And a couple of thousand years later, on the 31st of August 1985, the Saudi Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman was born. And, I'm not saying he's like Ivan the Terrible or Caligula. I'm just pointing it out because it's something to say. I'm not saying that he's like them, by the way. I'm just saying there is a coincidence going on there. And so I want to look at Mohammed bin Salman's horoscope. I don't have his time of birth. All I know is the date of birth. I think he was born in Riyadh. And he's a very important man in the Middle East. Leaders are at great pains to get onto his side, and we know that Joe Biden has made a complete mess of it. Him and Joe Biden do not get on, and I thought it might be interesting to look at him and Joe Biden's chart, to see what's going on. I think Mohammed bin Salman gets on a lot better with Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And, America, it's important for the United States to have good relations with Saudi Arabia. And I think Donald Trump was better at it than Joe Biden. So I want to look at that. I want to look at what's been going on in the last few years. He had in 2017, Mohammed bin Salman had his purges in Saudi Arabia, and when there were a lot of arrests, when he sort of really stamped his authority on the kingdom. And then in 2018, there was the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi-born journalist who was very critical of of the Saudi royal family, and he went into the Saudi, I think the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and he didn't come out alive, or maybe he was killed somewhere else, but that got a huge amount of press, and it was not good for Mohammed bin Salman's reputation, at least in the West. So he is a bit of a strong man, Mohammed bin Salman, and but he is important, and so it's important to for us to look at his horoscope. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology for the weekend, which is the weekend of October the 14th and 15th, 2023. So let's have a look. So that's okay. Weekend. Here we go. So this is a chart here for midnight on October the 15th, 2023, i.e. the very beginning of Sunday. So it's a halfway point in the weekend. Now the main event this weekend is the new moon. The new moon sort of takes place on Saturday. So on Saturday, the moon is in Libra. There is a new moon, and for many of us, Saturday could be a time of new beginnings, or at least the very beginning of a new beginning. It's when the new lunar cycle starts, and as I say with new moons, if you're going to yes, it's about new beginnings, but to begin with, things have to start in secret. It's like with seeds. They germinate underground. They don't germinate in broad daylight. It's like with your plans and ideas. You can't. If you want them to be successful, you don't tell people about them unless you really need to. It should always be on a need-to-know basis. So if you've got a good idea on Saturday, don't rush to discuss it, and don't rush to put it into action. On a new moon, that's the point where you cannot see the moon in the night sky. Even if it's cloudless, you might see stars, but you will not see the moon, the new moon. So that is a time of complete darkness where we need to be very secretive. It's only sort of a few days later when we see that first sliver in the night sky, but we can actually start to put things into action. Maybe tell people what we're planning, that kind of thing. Now, this new moon on Saturday, it's close to Mercury, which I think is good. It allows us to communicate, allows us to get our message across. But of course, when I say message across, we don't want to discuss really important things, particularly if they represent our plans for the future. And in this light, I should point out that Mercury is opposition. There's Mercury, and it's opposition Chiron. So Saturday does see this opposition between Mercury and Chiron. Chiron is a comet, I think. So Mercury opposition the comet Chiron. I've already talked about this, so I don't really want to repeat myself too much, but Mercury Chiron means we just have to be careful what we say. We might think that our words can be healing. In fact, we can do more harm than good with the things we say and with the things we write. For example, if someone's got a trauma, someone's got a problem, and something bad has happened, we might think, we should say something reassuring. We should send them a reassuring email or a text message or whatever. Maybe not. We might think we're helping, but maybe we're not helping. So be very careful be very careful what we say, because we can hurt people with our words. And as I said when I was talking about, when I had a specific video on a new moon, Chiron is the maverick. And because it's the maverick, we can say, our words can cause chaos. We might enjoy causing chaos with our words, and it might be fun at the time, but someone's may have to pick up the pieces. So that's perhaps the main theme on Saturday. On Sunday, so Sunday at 12:04 p.m. London time, the moon goes into Scorpio. So that's just if you're in London, just before lunch on Sunday, moon goes into Scorpio. Now, if you are in the Americas, that means the moon will go into Scorpio early morning. So essentially, unless you get up really early, depends where you are, the moon's going to be in Scorpio all of Sunday if you're in the Americas. If you're in Europe, the last half of the day. If you're in Australia, New Zealand, then really the moon doesn't go into Scorpio until sort of late evening, and you should probably consider Sunday to have a moon in Libra as well. So if you're in the Americas or Europe, for a big chunk of the day, the moon is going to be in Scorpio, and that's a very different energy than moon in Libra. Moon in Scorpio, moon does not work well in Scorpio. When moon is in Scorpio, things can happen which we weren't planning on. That's because the moon is, not only is the moon fallen in Scorpio, but the moon is in the Via Combusta, that part of the sky between 15 Libra and 15 Scorpio. So, we might think things are going to work out in one way, but they may actually work out in another way. So we have to tread a bit carefully, and we really should avoid taking risks. And matters are made more difficult by the fact that as soon as the moon moves into Scorpio, it makes a conjunction with Mars. And so Moon-Mars conjunctions can be really quite difficult to deal with. People can get angry very quickly. And I think actually that ties in with what I was saying about that Mercury-Chiron opposition. Yes, that Mercury-Chiron opposition is at its maximum strength on Saturday, but it's still around on Sunday. And so when you have Mercury-Chiron opposition at the same time as you've got a Moon-Mars conjunction, that means, we could say things without thinking about it, and the response might be very dramatic. Someone might get instantly offended. Be very careful there. Moon-Mars, if you offend Moon-Mars in Scorpio, Moon-Mars is difficult at the best of times, a Moon-Mars conjunction. Moon-Mars in Scorpio is especially difficult. And if you say the wrong thing, you might not be forgiven. So if you don't say it if you don't have to on Sunday. And in general, emotions are going to be close to the surface. Moon in Scorpio, Moon conjunct Mars in Scorpio, it's like boiling emotions. Emotions that don't seem immediately apparent, but they're there. Just because someone doesn't say anything, it doesn't mean they're not mad at us. And it may also reflect us. There are things that we might get mad about. We might see something that really, really makes us annoyed, that really angers us. It could be how other people are behaving. It could be something on the world stage. There is a lot going on in the world to make us angry, but we could be very, very angry. If you hear something that upsets you, if someone says something that upsets you, though, don't just automatically go ballistic. Maybe they really are saying something horrible or whatever, or something really stupid. But you have to have some allowance for people to just make mistakes. They're not quite sure about their facts. So don't go ballistic straight away. Just keep your cool. Engage, if you can, in some kind of civil discussion to see what they really mean. Of course, there's always a place for anger. Sometimes anger is really necessary, but with that Moon Mars, it can be a bit of an overreaction. So that's the weekend. Overall, I would have said the weekend is tense. It's nice having the new moon on Saturday. With Mercury tied up with it. But you've got the Mercury Chiron opposition, which I'm not sure is going to be entirely helpful. And then Sunday, moon moves into Scorpio, and that really could bring a lot of anger and difficult feelings to the surface. So overall, it's a weekend where we have to tread carefully, and we should be careful what we say. Let me now move on to my forecasts for the 12 signs. Here they go. So these are my forecasts for the weekend of October the 14th and 15th, 2023. Aries. The weekend's new moon puts a focus on relationships, and it's a time when you can interact with people in a new way. And there are romantic possibilities if that's what you want. But the comet Chiron is making a hard aspect to Mercury. Words can be painful, even dangerous, so be careful what you say. Taurus. On Saturday, you're not in the mood for doing much, and that's probably a good thing. If you start something too early, with insufficient preparation, then the end result could be somewhat negative. On Sunday, there's a new beginning, but you still have to be careful. The people around you could be difficult to predict. Gemini. Mercury, your ruler, is making an opposition aspect to the comet Chiron. Words and thoughts can be painful, even when there is an intention to do good. You might think you're helping by making a phone call or by sending an email, but perhaps you're making things worse. On Sunday, small details could lead to big arguments. Cancer. Over the weekend, your relationship with your home and family comes into focus. You'll realize that things could and should be different, that everyone needs a more constructive approach. And through your vision of domestic harmony, you can create some real changes. But in the way, on that path to where you want to go, there could be some major disagreements which have to be handled. Leo. And you can start again. If in the past you haven't expressed yourself properly, you can have another go. This time round, give consideration to other people's feelings and make maximum use of your sensitivity. As the weekend progresses, you regard your time and space as being increasingly precious, and you'll be inclined to put up the do not disturb sign. Virgo. Financial issues could be bothering you, even if they are not in themselves serious. It's because right now money is the thing that matters to you, and you can't pretend that it's not important. But the weekend's new moon eclipse represents a new approach to your financial dealings, and over the next few weeks you'll be able to fine-tune your strategy. Libra. There's a new moon eclipse in your star sign. For many Librans, it represents a new beginning, especially if you have a birthday in mid-October. You can develop new plans and then slowly put them into action. But you'll also realize that the financial dimension can't be ignored, and this might be reinforced by events and realizations on Sunday. Scorpio. On Saturday, you want to keep yourself to yourself. It seems the safest and most comfortable option. This also puts you in a good position to start planning for the future. On Sunday, the situation starts to change. You're feeling more confident and your determination can bring about real change. But in the process, there could be a clash of wills. Sagittarius. Something new appears on your wish list. Not so long ago, you didn't want it, but now it feels essential. But is it worth the expenditure of time and money? That is something you have to work out over the next couple of weeks. If someone is rude to you, don't necessarily take it to heart. It might be an honest mistake or just a confusion of words. Capricorn. Sunday's new moon eclipse could have relevance to your career. It points to a new direction which over the next fortnight could become very clear. But don't rush into anything. There are still a lot of things to find out. On Sunday, choose your company carefully. Some people are amazing, other people make you really angry. Aquarius. Can Aquarians ever change their mind? It does happen, especially when they're exposed to new ideas and new states of being. And Saturday's new moon can challenge some of your beliefs in a way that may be highly beneficial. On Sunday, you feel a strong impulse to take the initiative, perhaps in terms of career or business. Impulses can be dangerous. Pisces. You're taking life more seriously, and this is a long-term trend. You realize that things have to be in order and that the complexities of human emotion have to be properly managed. And right now, you're able to protect yourself from other people's craziness. On Sunday, give yourself space to think and feel. You could have some spiritual insights. I'm now going to transition to the I Ching, and as always, I threw 3 coins in the air, and I asked the question, what is the weekend going to be like for people watching this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 44, coming to meet. The symbolism here is of being involved in a relationship with someone who has the potential to, take things over. I think it's a symbol of a woman who is, very pushy. She takes advantage of the situation. And we soon find that things are out of control. Now, coming to meet is the title of this hexagram given by Richard Wilhelm in his translation of the I Ching. Greg Winkup, in his translation, he translates it as subjugated, and that indicates that we may be in a situation where we don't have much control, or there's a danger that we lose control, that someone else or some organization completely has us under its thumb. So that's how we start the day, and we have to advance very, very cautiously. In fact, we shouldn't advance at all. There are a number of lines moving. This first line moves, and the symbolism here as being in a situation where we really are subjugated, where we really where we don't have much control, and really, in the first instance, there's not much we can do. We can try to advance forward, but really, if we try to advance, we're going to have less and less control. So I think we need to accept that situation. And whatever you're doing, I think this particularly applies if you're involved with other people, and I think it particularly applies to Saturday. I take a chronological approach to the I Ching. If there are 2 hexagrams, I see the first hexagram as coming before the second chronologically. So I think this hexagram applies more to Saturday than to Sunday. And in terms of other people, we may find that they're given things they don't deserve if we're in a social environment, particularly if we're working. I mean, I know it's a Saturday. People don't tend to work on a Saturday. Well, I suppose in a lot of places they do. But if you're in a working environment or a business environment, you may see people who really aren't deserving of promotion, aren't deserving of responsibility. They're able to push forward. And of course, that may not just be in terms of work. It may be in your social life. If you go to parties and things like that, you just may see that, look at who's getting the attention. The people getting the attention are the people who are in some way inferior, have got the least to give, are the least talented. They just talk a lot and they get the attention, but you just feel that they don't really deserve it. But that's the way it is if you go to parties. Well, of course, we're coming to meet. You probably shouldn't be going to parties on Saturday because you're not going to have much control, and you're going to feel it's someone else's show, and you're not going to be very comfortable about it. And that applies, I think, to all social gatherings. But if it's in a business sense, I think even more so. And but it's not saying, though, that you should cut yourself off from other people, even if you feel that other people have nothing to offer, they don't deserve the positions they have. You can't cut yourself off from them, because if you cut yourself off from them, you have nothing. So you have to accept that certain relationships are not helpful, that in certain relationships you're not being properly respected, but that doesn't mean you terminate the relationship. You have to keep the relationship going, because that relationship does have some value, even if you're not getting any value right now. Because if you cut yourself off, then it's going to be very difficult to get anything done at all. So perhaps it's a question of accepting a situation, but not going into the situation any deeper than you have to. This line here, the 5th line, moves. Now that 5th line is actually quite fortunate. It indicates a situation where at first you don't really get recognized. So let's say, for example, you're going to, a party on Saturday night, and at the beginning of the party you don't get recognized, and people don't seem to accept your talents. They don't really want to talk to you. They don't want to hear what you've got to say. Slowly, you will get recognized. But in a sort of in a subjugated kind of way, to use Winkup's phrase, that use his word in a subjugated. There are people who you respect. They're the ones in control, and you have to function under their control. And slowly, they will give you more and more space. And if it's in a working situation, if you can just if you know who to respect, there are certain people who can be respected, and if they will start to recognize your talents. and you will eventually be able to come into your own. So it's tough going, this hexagram coming to meet, or subjugated, using Winkup's description of it. But it does move. It doesn't. We're not stuck in this hexagram. And I think as we move into Sunday, we move into this hexagram, the taming power of the great, hexagram 26. It's about self-discipline. It is also about accepting that some people are in authority, and we kind of have to do what we're told. So who are those people in authority? I mean, people we genuinely respect. And as I was talking about it at the end of the previous hexagram, there are people we genuinely respect, who can genuinely be trusted, and if we do things their way, we're going to be fine. Now, again, Sunday, even more so from Saturday, is a day that people tend not to work. But again, if you are involved, if you are doing any work on Sunday, some of your superiors, you have to kind of do things their way, provided you respect them. And we also have to consider the past, because the taming power is about something that is controlling us. So where does that control come from? And that control can actually come from the past. We were brought up in a particular tradition. All of us were brought up in a particular tradition. We were brought up with a set of values, hopefully. And that tradition, those values should be our guide. They are controlling us. So that control doesn't necessarily come from without. It comes from within. It's what our family has taught us, what our parents have taught us, even what our grandparents. That whole tradition can give us some indication about how we can behave if we have challenges, particularly on Sunday if they crop up. What do we do? How do we deal with it? Remember when I was talking about the astrology, I said there's a moon conjunct Mars in Scorpio. Are we going to overreact? Hopefully not. Taming power of the great. We've got to have some discipline, even if we do feel angry, whether it's angry at our friends, our family, what's going on in the world. We've got to show some discipline, and that discipline doesn't just come from outside. It comes from our upbringing, who we are, and our tradition. And if we rely on the past can tell us how to behave in the present. And so, overall, this weekend, if we just listen, if we listen to who we are and who we've come from, because we are our past in many ways, we will make the right decisions, and the weekend should end on a satisfactory note. I now want to look at the astrology, and I want to look at the horoscope of Mohammed bin Salman. Now, when looking at Mohammed bin Salman, he gets a lot of bad press in the West, and we have to recognize this. I mean, he has a really difficult job, being Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. It's a complicated world, and what goes in the West doesn't necessarily go in the Middle East, and so we shouldn't be too quick to criticize him. He does what he has to do to stay in power, and I assume he's I suppose he's trying to deal with problems in his kingdom, and it's quite a dangerous job as well, being Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. So we have to bear that in mind, and we have to not sort of necessarily impose our Western values, maybe our faux Western values, on what's going on in Saudi Arabia. So let's look at his horoscope. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Here we go. So this is Mohammed bin Salman's horoscope. He was born on October the 31st, 1985. Now that means he's young. I mean, he has just turned 38, and he's already one of the most powerful people in the region. But we do not have a time of birth. So he is a Virgo. And as I said at the beginning of this video, Virgos do like things to be absolutely right. And, I do think that Virgo leaders can be a bit scary because they want things right. They don't necessarily tolerate mistakes, and they have a fine eye for detail. There's his sun in Mercury. Sorry, there's his sun in Virgo. Now, I think what is quite important about this sun in Virgo is that it's in mutual reception to Mercury. So, in other words, the sun is in Mercury. Sorry, the sun is in Virgo, which is a sign ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in Leo. Leo is a sign ruled by the sun. So in other words, he has a Sun-Mercury mutual reception. I think that Sun-Mercury mutual reception is really important. I think it's his biggest strength, and I'm saying that because I don't have a time of birth. There may be other things going on, but I can't see it because I don't have any houses. I don't know what planets are north or south of the horizon. So with the Sun-Mercury mutual reception, he has a keen sense of detail. I suspect that he is highly intelligent. There are a few things that he misses, and probably he communicates very well with the people who he has to communicate with. Already, he's stayed in power for a certain amount of time. He's been able to consolidate his position, and he is not afraid of using the full force of the state. And yes, he has a Mars-Saturn opposition. Sorry, Mars-Saturn square. So he's got Mars in Leo, Mercury in Leo, Venus in Leo, and there is Mars square his Saturn square his Mars. Now, before I talk about Saturn square his Mars, I should point out that he does have 3 planets in Leo. 3 traditional planets in Leo. I would guess that he has a high opinion of himself. I would guess that he doesn't take kindly to people disrespecting him. And I would also guess, fixed signs, he's got 3, 4, 5 traditional planets in fixed signs. He probably doesn't forgive slights. If you offend him, that's not a good thing to do. So I must emphasize that when I pointed out that he shares a birthday with Caligula, that's just a piece of coincidence. That's just a coincidence. I'm just pointing it out. A bit of fun. I'm certainly not saying that Mohammed bin Salman is like Caligula, just in case he's watching this video. No, I'm just saying he's got nothing. There is no connection between him and Caligula. I'm just pointing it out. A bit of fun. So yes, so he's probably easily offended with all of that stuff in Leo. And yes, so Saturn square his Mars in Leo. I think he regards life as being tough. He has a great capacity to be frustrated, particularly when he doesn't get his way. I think there's a lot of anger there. And clearly he needs to find an outlet for that anger. But there is a potential for frustration. Mars and Saturn are connected with death. If you're a leader, if you're Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia and you've got Mars Saturn square, you have to think very carefully about what you do and what the impact of what you do is. Because if you're not careful, a lot of people could be hurt. For example, Saudi Arabia's invasion of Yemen, which has caused a huge amount of death and destruction. We might be able to link that with his Mars Saturn square, and also his attempts to keep control. There was his purge. I don't know the full details. I'm not an expert on what's going on in Saudi Arabia, but in November 2017, a lot of very senior people in Saudi Arabia were arrested. People at the highest echelons of society were arrested, and this was a move initiated by Mohammed bin Salman, and they were imprisoned, I think, in a hotel. I don't want to go into details because I can't. You can look it up. But this was a very big event in Saudi Arabia, and it, I assume, helped establish his authority. So I thought it might be a good idea to actually look at what was going on November the 4th, 2017, when he had this purge. Here is Mohammed bin Salman, so he's called MBS very often. MBS is horoscope in the middle. These were the positions of the planets when the purge happened. And this purge actually happened on the day of a full moon. In fact, this was a full moon set for. This was the actual time of a full moon. I set it for Riyadh. It doesn't actually hit any angles, but that was a full moon. So it happened just before it happened. There was an exact Venus-Uranus opposition at the time of this full moon on the day when this purge started. So Venus is all about all the sort of relationships within the kingdom, perhaps, particularly at the top, and opposition Uranus. They were obviously completely disrupted because people were being arrested. So going back to you can see how the full moon impacted Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. So this full moon was on his south node. So the south node, and it was on his north node as well. It was on his nodal axis. So this was something he really felt that he had to do. It was probably part of his destiny. I mean, part of his role, what he was on the planet for, was to undertake this purge. Something had to change in Saudi Arabia. Also, this full moon was on his nodal axis, and the nodal axis was on his Mercury. So when he did his purge, the North Node was at 2030 Leo, and his Mercury is at 26 Leo. Meaning, I think as the North Node was on his Mercury, North Node is also about connections with people. Mercury is also about his sort of intelligence. Mercury is in mutual reception to the Sun. I think he realized, sort of intellectually, that this was something he had to do. And that Mercury opposition in mutual reception to the Sun in Virgo, maybe he'd literally received intelligence or something like that, but his understanding of the details, his intelligence, and everything came together at that moment, and he felt that it was the right thing to do when he did it. Another event that he is associated with, which is maybe linked to this purge, I don't know, was the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. So Jamal Khashoggi was a Saudi dissident on October the 2nd, October the 2nd, 2018. He was murdered in or around the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. So this is the chart of the death. Yeah, October the 2nd, 2018 was when Khashoggi was murdered, and a lot of people in the West are saying that Mohammed bin Salman had ordered it. I don't know whether it's true. I don't know enough about the event to make any speculations about it, but let's see what was going on for MBS at the time of this dissident's murder in Istanbul. We can see that, strangely, the North Node was on his Venus, which is kind of a bit strange. That might relate to something else going on in his life, but may have nothing to do with what was going on in Istanbul. Jupiter was on his Saturn. I think that's probably more important. So transiting Jupiter when Khashoggi was killed was at 2220 Scorpio, right on his Saturn. So Jupiter would be a release. Let me get this line right. What is that? What's that line? Rid me. Is it Beckett? Rid me of this turbulent priest. That's oh God, I should know the reference. I know the line. But when Thomas of Becket was murdered, he was the Archbishop of Canterbury in England in the sort of Middle Ages, and the king had apparently sort of said in jest that he's sick of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the loyal knights then went off and killed the Archbishop of Canterbury, and that was the line, "Rid me of this turbulent priest." Jupiter, I think that was a play, a line from a play, but Jupiter conjuncts Saturn does seem to be indicative of this concept of "rid me of this turbulent priest." Getting rid of this guy who's just causing all these problems, making these criticisms and so forth. Jupiter conjunct with Saturn, that fits, and Jupiter is square the Mars, so that's interesting. That Jupiter was relieving him of perhaps of a problem, relieving him of a critic. Saturn in Scorpio was perhaps this person causing trouble. And don't forget, MBS is a Leo. He doesn't like people saying bad things about him. So maybe that's how the Jupiter square Mars was working its way through. Now, as far as what's going on at the moment, I would assume that Hamas and the Gaza having this incursion into Israel is a real must be a real headache for MBS. So it might then be a good idea to look at how this attack impacted him. So on the outer wheel, I've got the planets at the time of the attack on Saturday, October the 7th, and inside the wheel we've got MBS's horoscope. So what was going on? I think right now for MBS, Uranus is creating a lot of problems for him. At the time of the attack, Uranus was at 22 degrees 28 Taurus. That means that Uranus is making a square to his Mars. Now, okay, that is not exact. It's been happening over the summer. As we've moved towards the attack, Uranus has been close to the square of the Mars. Now it's moving off, but it's now moving to a square of his Mercury. And as the year progresses, that square to his Mercury is going to get closer and closer, and so Uranus is going to really stir things up, and I think that's going to be really difficult for him, having to deal with what's going on in Israel. It's just not going to go away. I mean, he's already had problems. I won't say problems, but he's been very busy, with having to deal with what's going on in Ukraine, having to deal with pressure from the US. I don't know what threats the US has been making against Saudi Arabia, if any, but they want a low oil price. He's having to be strong to keep the oil price as high as at a reasonable rate. I mean, it's Saudi Arabia's treasure. They want to get as much money from it as possible while it's still there. So there are challenges here for him, and I think his I suppose biggest fear is civil unrest in Saudi Arabia, and with Uranus for the next few months squaring his Mercury and his Mars, it's going to be really hard work doing what he's doing. So that's the main theme, and I wanted to finish by comparing his chart with that of Joe Biden. Now, it's been said that Joe Biden has, really messed things up with America's relationship with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is supposedly an important ally, and what you don't do is you don't criticize what Saudi Arabia is doing. You don't criticize its internal politics, and that's part of the problem the Democrats have. They get concerned about human rights and whatever. America with its Jupiter in Cancer is really, the United States has Jupiter in Cancer and its July the 4th, 1776 chart. It loves moralizing, telling countries what to do, and Saudi Arabia does not appreciate it. And the Democrats are particularly bad at the moment about moralizing, and so Biden is not MBS's favorite person. So to do some comparisons, look at Trump, for example. Trump had a much better relationship with Mohammed bin Salman. So here's Mohammed bin Salman, and here's Trump's chart. So Trump has his Mars at 26 Leo. MBS has his Mars at 23 Leo. Okay, Mars conjunct each other. There is a potential there for a clash. That's true. But if you look at Trump's Sun in Gemini, his Sun in Gemini is sextile MBS's Mercury, sextile MBS's Mars. And look at Trump's Moon. His Moon in 21 Sagittarius is trine MBS's Mars Mercury conjunction. So Trump knows what to say. They have. He knows how to flatter MBS, how to get MBS on his side, and Trump and MBS have a certain rapport. Let's look at Putin, for example. How does Putin get on with MBS? So MBS is in the middle. Look at Putin's Mars. Putin's Mars is trine MBS's Mercury-Mars conjunction. That's not bad. Also, Putin has Venus in Scorpio, and it's conjunct MBS's South Node. So for MBS, MBS's South Node in Scorpio is his line of least resistance, and so somehow with Putin's Venus in Scorpio on that line of least resistance, I think Putin offers him a vision of a world, perhaps from a karmic past, which MBS might find quite attractive. Also, Putin's South Node is on MBS's Mercury. I think that helps. The South Node is a line of contact. It's not just about previous incarnations, if you believe in that kind of stuff. So I think there are overall some good connections between Putin's chart and MBS's chart, and some good connections between Trump's chart and MBS's chart. So if your main priority is the United States having good relations with Saudi Arabia, you need to think carefully about who your president is. Trump is okay. Biden, by contrast, it's not good. So here's Biden's chart. Biden's chart is on the outside. So there's Biden's Saturn. So Biden has his Saturn at 9:57 Gemini, and his Saturn is square at MBS's Sun. So when MBS has dealings with Biden, he probably regards Saturn as the old man. This old man telling him what to do. This old man pontificating. This old man just doesn't make him feel good about himself. And that's a problem. Also, there's Biden's Mercury. So Biden's Mercury is conjunct MBS's Saturn, and his Mercury is square MBS's Mercury-Mars conjunction. Now, MBS is a very proud man. Mercury-Mars is in Leo. He's very clear about what his ideas are, and he verbally and mentally gets angry when he's challenged, and so Biden's Mercury square MBS's Mercury-Mars conjunction, that's not good. I think that MBS just finds Biden at the very least really annoying, and I don't think that they're two people that can do business with each other. And look at Biden. He's got Sun in Scorpio. There's MBS's Saturn. MBS's Saturn is kind of close to the close to Biden's sun, sort of around 5 degrees away. So then you can say that Biden's Saturn squares MBS's sun, and MBS's Saturn conjuncts Biden's sun. I think it was Stephen Arroyo, the astrologer Stephen Arroyo wrote. I think he wrote a book on synastry, and he called this a double whammy when you've got one person's sun, the two planets have mutual synastry. So Biden's sun hits MBS's Saturn, and MBS's sun hits Biden's Saturn. So that would be a double whammy. I think that's how Stephen Arroyo described it. So overall, it's not a good relationship, and so that's another reason perhaps why you don't want to have Biden as president, because America's relationship with Saudi Arabia is really important. And if you want good relations with Saudi Arabia and that's your only priority, you're probably better off having Trump as president. But there are other things to consider. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about Mohammed bin Salman. I think his main issue at the moment is the planet Uranus is, over the next few months into next year, is going to be causing aspecting his Mercury-Mars conjunction. I think he does have to be careful. He has to be very careful about lashing out. Mercury-Mars can get really annoyed, and if he's got Uranus hitting at Mercury-Mars conjunction, he could be tempted to do things which he regrets. Perhaps on a personal level, perhaps on a sort of global level, how he responds to his neighbours. So he needs a very strong sense of self-discipline. We also have to remember that next year, when Saturn it's going retrograde at the moment. When it goes direct, it will start moving towards an opposition of his sun, and the sun is very much about Mohammed bin Salman's leadership and how he deals with the challenge of having Saturn opposition his sun. I would have thought that next year Mohammed bin Salman is going to feel a need to crack down more, to really do something to establish his authority further with Saturn opposition his sun. But he has to be careful how he does it, because there is a danger that he goes too far. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about Mohammed bin Salman. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.